Hey, how's everybody doing? Matt McNeil coming to you from the garage. And yes, this guy is still clay and not latex, but I am in the process of getting him ready to mold and really kind of considering the things that I'll need to do in order to make a successful mold on this guy. One of the things that I'm actually going to do on this one that I've never done before is I'm going to use UltraCal 30. I'm used to using HydroCal. But after doing the Ed Wolf, which was a three-piece mold, I thought maybe I would give UltraCal a shot just because the scramble of using HydroCal is a little nerve-wracking. And I literally, when we made that mold, thought that we might have messed that one up. So on this one, I'm going to use UltraCal. I hear good things. It's a harder stone from my understanding. You have longer to work with it. I'm going to do a little more homework before I actually pull the trigger on mixing that stuff up and putting them on here because, again, I really want a successful mold to come out of this guy. I've worked for quite a while working on this guy, getting him to a point where I feel like I can start to mix some stone. But one of the things I wanted to talk about in regard to preparing this guy is, you sculpt something, you think, oh yeah, it's great. And then, when you go to make a mold, there are certain considerations I kind of take into account when making a mold. And in order to make a successful mold, the one thing that you don't want to do is have it lock. So what that means is when you build your mold, you're going to build a two-piece mold and it'll probably come up somewhere like this and then up to the top of the head. Well, there's an Alana armature in here, which is a lot like this Ed. This Ed is a bigger armature. And what you don't want is for the center line of that mold to be too far in one direction or the other. Otherwise, it'll lock on this plastic armature and you won't be able to get your mold out. Now, I will tell you that if my mold were to lock on an Ed or an Alana, after the time spent in sculpting something, I would do my best to cut that armature apart inside the mold and get them out. But let's hope that that's not what we're doing here. So one of the things I like to do is set myself up a little bit for success in molding something like this. And one of the things I like to do is, if you'll take a look, there's some little holes all along here. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking a needle and I'm poking it along where I think my mold line is going to be. And I just want to know how deep the clay is in those areas because, again, I don't want it to lock. Now, on the top of the head, it's not quite as critical. You can be a little fore after that center line because what happens is when a mold comes apart, generally, you can get it, you have a little wiggle room this way and a little wiggle room that way in order to separate it here. The place where it locks most often is going to be right here in this neck area. And I'm pretty confident, because I use that Alana mold, that this neck is deep enough that when I run my mold line up the center, and here, and then up and around, that what'll happen is it will be enough clay in those areas. But, why not set yourself up for success? So what I'm doing now is I'm coming back in here and I'm going to adding, as you can see, I'm adding just a little extra clay. Why not? Because what that'll do is that'll allow that wiggle room to become even wider, which means that I can set my mold line. If I'm just a little too far this way or a little too far that way, then I'm still not going to be in too much danger because that thickness is what's going to allow that mold to come apart easily. Again, I don't want to put any pressure on particularly the seam line where these two halves of the mold are going to come together. So, I have heard some sculptors go, don't ever let how you're going to mold your piece dictate your sculpture. And because this guy's got hair on it, I think, in my opinion, you'd be crazy not to just give yourself a little bit of extra wiggle room. All of that's going to be covered up anyway. And quite frankly, I think he probably needed a little bit of filling out, particularly because this is the first time I've used monster clay. And what happened on this guy is I found myself resting my hand on his head like this as I was sculpting. And and he ended up with like a palm-sized dent in his head here. So I'm rectifying all of those sort of bad sculptor habit sins, and filling it out. I'm, like I said, giving myself a little bit of a buffer on the top of the head. I'll come down here and very carefully stick a needle in around this neck area, but I'm going to tell you, I'm pretty confident that, you know, I've got at least this much clay, which gives me, you know, enough wiggle room fore or aft to make a mold line that's not gonna knock on wood. You know what's gonna happen is I've made this video and I've probably just jinxed myself. So anyway, and then one of the other things as I'm looking at this guy, and I always do this and I know better, you know, I've sort of like stopped my sculpture here, which is kind of dumb, because what happens is when you make your mold, the armature, even though this is pretty much flat, becomes, you know, part of the mold. As you can see, this is a plaster line from a previous casting that I've done. And so if this is exposed, front side, not so critical, but on the sides, it makes it very difficult to separate a mold. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to cut a couple of slabs of clay and I'm going to graft those in on the sides here, just so that, again, I'm giving myself the best chance at success for making a mold. And the other thing too is, you know, I stopped this sculpture right here, and the more I look at it, the more I feel like that this sculpture probably should have come down a little bit further, particularly in the front, not so much the back. I don't think really the back is that much of a deal, because, you know, we can draw a visual line with our brains to here to make, you know, that kind of makes sense. But because of the trench coat that this guy wears, even though you're not going to see what's going on down here, I feel like I should give myself some latex here so that when I do put clothes on him, I have something to attach those clothes to, so that I'm not, you know, fighting, oh no, look, I can see off the edge of the bust or something like that. Not only that, but I feel like a complete bib on this guy's probably going to make the most sense, not only for, again, molding, but for collectors as well. I think that you guys are going to be more interested in something that actually gives us something for the clothes to bite on. So anyway, I know it's been a while. This guy's been sitting around literally since before Halloween, and I pick at it here and there, but I've been super duper busy, holidays and all that good stuff. But I'm back in the saddle. I got literally 100 pounds of Ultra Cal waiting on me right there. Hopefully I don't use 100 pounds on this one mold, but I did want to set myself up for success and run maybe a couple of Ultra Cal tests, get a sense of the thing before I commit to putting it on this guy right here. So anyway, long time no talk. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a good time in their garages and studios and workshops and all of that good stuff. But very, very soon, maybe, I don't want to commit myself, but maybe this coming weekend will be time to mix some stone and get this guy rolling. So there it is. Jerry Dandridge, setting myself up for success in the new year. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Hope everybody's having a good day.